Hello aspirants, welcome to Vishnu IAS Academy. Hope you're all doing well. So today this is one more session of the continuation of the series of UPSC Prelims PYQs discussion on fundamental rights topic. Okay, till now we have seen some questions, right? And this is the continuation session on fundamental rights. Previous year questions. So let's see the question over here. Which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry a person of one's choice? There is an article in the fundamental right which guarantees the right to a particular person to marry a person of his or her own choice. Okay, so what is that? Let's see. What are the options given? Article 19, 21, Article 25 and Article 29. So if we go to the explanation, if we see the answer, it is Article 29. Article 29 is right to privacy. Okay, so in that right to privacy, the Constitution of India has guaranteed a person the right to marry another person of his or her choice. Okay, so if we see, already in the previous class I have explained in a detailed manner about Article 21. So here let's see a brief explanation about that. Article 29 of the Constitution of India grants its citizens the right to marry the person of one's own choice. Okay, and it deals with the protection of life as well as personal choice. It will be dealing the protection of life. It will be protecting the life of every citizen of India as well as their personal choices also. These are guaranteed by the Constitution and safeguarded by the Supreme Court. And now, Article 29 has nearly 38 rights embedded in it. Okay, so how many rights are there? 38 rights embedded in it. And right to marry the person of one's choice is one among these 38. 1 out of 38. Okay, by the Constitution and safeguarded by the Supreme Court. So the answer is Article 21 over here. Clear? And now, one more question. Which of the following are regarded as the main features of rule of law? Okay, limitation of options given are limitations of powers, equality before law, people's responsibility to the government, and liberty and civil rights. Okay, which among the following 4 given are the correct? Okay, we are supposed to select from the code given below. It is said that 1 and 3, 2 and 4 are 1, 2 and 4, or is it 1, 2 and 1, 2, 3 and 4, or all the options? Okay, if we see the explanation, what is rule of law? First of all, rule of law is proposed by A.V. Dicey. Okay, actually, this particular concept of rule of law has been proposed by A.V. Dicey. Who is he? He is an eminent British jurist. Okay, he is the one who proposed this law. So that means we can say that we have derived this rule of law from England. That is from British Parliament. Okay, so according to him, what is rule of law? According to A.V. Dicey, what is rule of law? According to him, all citizens of a country, in our case our India, all citizens of a country, regardless of their economic, social, religious status, and no matter to what class of the society they belong to, okay, be it richer class or lower class or whatever the class they belong to, all are subjected to the same law of the land or the country in which they are residing in. So that means this, you have to recollect the fundamental law of all are equal before law. Okay, and equal protection of laws. Isn't that so? So that means we can say that right to equality is a part and parcel of rule of law. Okay, this is the rule of law, and in this a part is right to equality, and that too equality before law and equal protection of laws, fundamental right, is a part of rule of law. Clear? Right. This law, it prevents, or what is the main function of this law is that it will be preventing the arbitrary power enabling that citizens are punished only and only if they violate any law, but not as the government wishes or as the ruling party or the ruling power wishes to punish them. Any citizen of a country should be punished only if they are found guilty of violating any particular law of that land. Okay, so this is the main function of this rule of law. Clear? And third, the concept equality of all citizens before the law is a part of rule of law, as I said over here itself. Right to equality, the concept of equality of all the citizens before the law. All the citizens are supposed to be placed under the umbrella of a equal law, which will be applied to everyone equally. Clear? So this is a part and parcel of rule of law. And now SC declared, Supreme Court, it has declared rule of law as a basic structure of the Constitution. Okay, Supreme Court, it has declared this rule of law as the basic structure of the Constitution, and hence it cannot be destroyed by any amendment of the Parliament also. That is the significance or the importance given to this particular concept of rule of law. I hope you are aware. You got at least an understanding of what this rule of law is. It is a part and parcel of fundamental rights of Part 3 of our Constitution. What is the answer for this? Which of the following are regarded as the main features of the rule of law? First, limitation of powers. Is it true? Yes, absolutely. Rule of law will limit the powers of the government. Okay, and next, equality before law. Yes, it will be guaranteeing equality before law for all the citizens of its land. True. People's responsibility to the government. No, it doesn't denote, it doesn't represent the people's responsibility of the government. So this option is wrong. And finally, liberty and civil rights. Yes, it will talk about the liberty and civil rights of the citizens of any country. So the answer is 1, 2 and 4. Option C is the correct answer. 1, 2 and 4. Clear all of you? Now let's move on to the next question. Okay, this is related to Right to Education Act, which has been guaranteed by Article 21A of the Fundamental Rights. Okay, there is a question on this article. Let's see what this question is. As per the Right to Education Act, to be eligible for appointment as a teacher, this is related to teacher's appointment. Okay, for primary level. In a state, a person would be required to possess the minimum qualification laid down by the concerned State Council of Teacher Education. For any person to be appointed as a teacher, he or she should possess the qualifications that have been put forward by the concerned State Council of Teacher Education. Is it true or false? This is the first statement. And when it comes to second statement, as per Right to Education Act, for teaching primary classes, a candidate is required to pass a TET, okay, conducted in accordance with the National Council of Teacher Education Guidelines. This is the second. In order for a person to be eligible to teach for primary classes, he or she is supposed to pass a particular test called as TET. Okay, and that too conducted in accordance with the National Council of Teacher Education Guidelines. According to those guidelines of National Council of Teacher Education, okay, there will be conducted a special examination called as TET. And is it so that a teacher to teach, in order to teach primary class students, is he or she supposed to pass this examination or not? Is the statement given over here. And next, in India, more than 90% of teacher education institutions are directly under the state governments. Is it true or false? Clear? In India, more than 90% of the teacher education, those institutions which educate for teacher eligibility test, are directly under the state government. Okay, these are the three statements. So here the question asked over here is to select the statements which are correct over here from the given options. Either 1 and 2 statements, or only second statement, or 1 and 3, or only third statement. Okay, let's go to the explanation part. So if we see the explanation part, according to the provisions of subsection 1 of section 23 of Right to Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009. This is the fundamental right. Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act. This is fundamental right. Right to Education Act. Okay? For children. The National Council for Teacher Education has laid down minimum qualifications for a person to be eligible for appointment as a teacher from classes 1 to 8. Okay, through its notification dated August 23, 2010. Yes, it is true that in order to teach to the students from class 1 and 8 in any government school, okay, a teacher, a qualified teacher should be having certain, okay, should possess some qualifications that were notified by National Council for Teacher Education of any of the state. This is the board. National Council for Teacher Education will be giving certain guidelines for qualification of a particular person as a teacher for teaching for teaching from classes 1 to 8 in any of the government schools. Clear? Yes. Now, one of the essential qualifications for a person to be eligible to be appointed as a teacher in any of the government schools, he or she, yes, should pass teacher eligibility test or the TET test, which will be conducted by the appropriate state government. So, second statement is also true. Yes, in order for a person to be appointed as a teacher, they are supposed to pass the teacher eligibility test. True. Now, from mid-1960s to 1993, the number of teacher education institutions in India have been increased from 1200 to about 1500. From 1960 to 1993, the number came up from 1200 to 1500, and after National Council for Teacher Education body has been established, okay, the number of these teacher educational institutions have further raised to 16,000, a drastical increase by 2011. This act has been enacted in 2009, and by 2011 the number has been increased from 1500 to 2011. What? The teacher educational institutions. Okay, of which over 90% are private only. It is not so that all the teacher educational institutions are under the control of state government, concerned state government, but yes, majority, nearly 90% of them are under the private control. Okay, so in India, more than 90% of the teacher educational institutions fall under private sector but not controlled by the government. So, statement 3 is false. Clear? So, according to the explanation, the answer over here is option B, that is only 2. Now, next question. Right to vote and to be elected in India is a options given. Is it a fundamental right, a natural right, constitutional right, or a legal right? So, what is right to vote as well as right to be elected in India? So, let's see the answer for this. Detailed solution. Right to vote. Okay, so right to vote in an elections is an important constitutional right. It is a constitutional right, but not a legal, natural, or a fundamental right. Okay, what is true of the right to vote is, it is also true for right to be elected. A person has the right to vote as well as right to be elected. I can vote as well as I can stand up for any of those parties also to be elected as a leader. Isn't that so? Yes. However, Article 326 of the Constitution, remember Article 326, this is the article of the Constitution which deals with the election of a person on the basis of right to vote. Okay, so every election of a person will be on the basis of only right to vote but not through any other process, is the definition of this Article 326 in the Constitution. Provides for universal adult suffrage but does not specifically mention the right to vote over there. Okay, and also right to vote is celebrated, and every year on January 25th, right to vote is celebrated in order to bring awareness about the importance of their right to vote in the common citizens of India. Okay, so on this day, the Election Commission's Foundation Day is also being celebrated, and it is merged with the right to vote also. So, and as it encourages more voters to take part in this political process of their, enjoying their franchise of vote over there. And this right to vote, the day of 2025, the theme for 2025 is nothing like voting, I vote for sure. So every year this right to vote comes with a different theme, and the theme for 2025 January 25th is nothing like voting, I vote for sure is the theme for January 2025. Okay, so this is all about the right to vote and also constitutional right. So what is the difference between a constitutional right and a fundamental right? Constitutional right and a fundamental right. Constitutional right has a very, very comprehensive meaning embedded under it. Okay, whereas fundamental right is just a part of constitutional right. There are various rights that are embedded in the constitutional rights, like fundamental rights, directive principles of the state policy, and there are some legal rights also which are there. Okay, but when it comes to fundamental rights, it is present only in part 3 of the constitution, which is narrower in scope when compared to the constitutional rights. Okay, so that is I'll give you a detailed description regarding the difference between these rights in the next session whenever it is possible. But for now, you remember that constitutional right has a very broad meaning and scope also when compared to this fundamental rights, whereas fundamental rights are embedded only in part 3 of the constitution. That means they are only a small part of the constitution over here. So the answer over here is right to vote is a constitutional right. Okay, clear?